Hi, good evening, good afternoon, or whenever you hear this show. It's been off and on for a while because I've had a lot of people have been off because they've been sick or busy or whatever. It's a crazy world out there. But here's one field that we're going to be talking about tonight that's not so crazy. And I think the conspiracies are all coming true in this field. And we're talking about UFOs, UAPs, whatever. And this is Dave Emmons, and this is the Strange Reality Show. And my guest today, I've had him on before, and everybody liked him. And he's a great guy, and he's got his own show, and he'll tell you a little bit about that. Jesse F. Peak. He's a certified MUFON field investigator for the state of Pennsylvania. He's a MUFON ERT experiencer resource team, and he's much needed right now to talk to people that have had experiences because we don't want to dilute their stories. We don't want other people to talk about, okay, they're wrong or right. Everybody has their own experience, and everybody needs to be heard. I honestly believe that in this field. And he's a MUFON CAG case assistant group member of the SCU Scientific Coalition for UAP Studies with certifications in astronomy, space exploration, space advocacy, mental health, and he has a certificate for that too, and case management, introduction to computer technology, basics of digital imaging. And Jesse looks like he's into this deep. He's studying, and he's sharp. He knows what he's doing, and he's still got a lot of years ahead of him yet to even get even better and absorb more experience. His basics of digital imaging, Google Analytics, PowerPoint, public speaking, and disposition into investigation. Also, a published writer in the MUFON Monthly Journal, ex Army 13 Bravo artillery cannon crew member. Thank you for your service, buddy, Jesse, in the Army National Guard, where he did training at Fort Sill, Oklahoma. Counselor for 5 years, teaching classes to young adults and Eagle Scouts. Jesse is a project director at Project BATTECH, and we'll talk about that because I think it's much needed at this point. And I know I've talked to Jesse about some of my experiences, and he was giving me some input from that, and I appreciated it. And it's Project BATTECH 404, researching, investigating electrical malfunctions associated with UAP encounters, that now has the largest data on EM to date. Lastly, Jesse is the co-founder and EM research team lead at the UAP Medical Coalition, helping to educate medical professionals on experiencer exposures from UAP encounters so they are no longer misdiagnosed. You can catch Jesse every week on his radio podcast called UFO Encounters Worldwide, available on all podcast platforms and the Unix Network Radio. Jesse Peak, glad to have you back on, buddy. I know we talked several times between shows, and your advice and a lot of your experiences helps me out, and actually has helped me out when I contacted you one time about some strange events, and you were explaining to me. Jesse Peak, MUFON, buddy, do you have anything else new going on?
Hey, Dave, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed having our conversation last time. And yes, we've had many conversations since then in between. So yeah, I mean, it's very busy in the field of ufology right now. A lot of different stuff going on with the government. MUFON's very, very busy. I think the more information comes out into the public view and the government coming out with this information, more people are reporting. They're feeling more comfortable reporting their experiences, their sightings. So we are very busy. Cases are open, flowing in, and that's our job. And we're happy to help people figure out, walk them through their experiences and help them find answers to what they're seeing in the sky. Something I'm very passionate about. I'm an experiencer myself. I've had a couple sightings. Yeah, and this is just the subject that I think, born to get involved with. So happy to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah, Jesse. I guess before we get into the new stuff, I talked to you the BATTECH. Am I saying that right? BATTECH, is that the way it is?
Yep.
Okay, that's a science that you studied and you're into. Could you tell us what that's about? Because I asked you a question, I guess, about a month ago about some of my experiences, and you were explaining to me some of this stuff. I don't know how deep you want to go into that, but just go into what you can go into, Jesse.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So I started this project. It's going on 3 years now. In October was 3 years, actually. October 1st, we rolled out. We do have a whole team, research team, assistant director. I'm the director. I run the project. We have a website. It's Project BATTECH 404.wordpress.com. And our main goal is to look at these UFO encounters where electrical malfunctions occur. So we've had many cases where people are using their cell phones, or they're out doing investigations in the field, or even people that have been abducted while they're driving down the road. Their vehicles may stall, their batteries may drain, and usually it's a sign that a UFO is near. We take all these cases in, whether they're historical. We also have a way that people can report their own cases of EM to us. And we've been researching different frequencies that have, can affect people. There's different health effects that can happen from these EM encounters. And we've just been basically building a database of information about these encounters. I think they're very important. It's also a sign of what kind of technology that are behind the UFOs in general, talking about propulsion systems, just the kind of technology they have in general. To be able to drain a battery out of a cell phone or a camera is very interesting.
Mm.
And to think about the science behind that, it just is very eye-opening. And we're really happy to announce that we're actually getting some real brand new stuff being sent to us, to look at and research and to be able to take apart. This gentleman actually had a major UFO encounter out on his ranch, and he had trail cams set up all over the ranch to try to catch these objects. And he actually has film of the objects and the cameras, all the trail cams malfunctioning. And he's sending that entire package over to us so we can actually get some real hard data on the evidence. I mean, this is the first time we've had evidence sent to us like this. So it's going to really give us some great information to give out to the public, and we're going to document it from the start of the investigation all the way to the end. We're talking about EMF readings we're going to take apart the trail cams, find out where the malfunctions happened, see how they were affected, and really document this. I think it's an important thing to do.
Right.
And we have a really great team behind us. We have a photo and video analyst who is one of the best that I've ever worked with in my career in ufology. I have a great people dedicated to researching these cases as they come in. Anybody can report them. We have a way to report on our website. So if you ever have one of these encounters, we can actually educate you on it as well. We've written some papers that are on the website as well, talking about the different frequencies, what you can expect, just some basic cases in general, if you want to educate yourself that way. And yeah, we're really happy to be doing this and moving forward. One of our next steps is to actually take this research and go to one of the local colleges here in Pennsylvania and actually do some testing, and actually see what different frequencies affect different technology, like the cell phone or a radio or a camera. And we know we have some really good science colleges right here in PA, right, half an hour away from me. So we're looking to talk with, their science board to see if they would be interested in working with us to do some real research here. So it's an important project, I think.
Well, I'm going to tear apart a trail camera. That's you got to be technical to do that. I've had the same problems, and Jesse, that they sometimes turn off the cameras temporarily. My
Correct.
camera, my trail camera, infrared, it'll go off just for a little while because it goes back to the reset date, 2012. That's a long time.
Okay.
But I haven't used that camera that much, and it still works great. I mean, it still takes pictures, but some nights it'll be completely off, and it'll go back to the default date, and I know that something turned it off, and
Right.
just by walking through. The other thing too is the lights blinking and stuff. That's happened to me and a lot of people. We don't know. Like you said, you got to research that to make sure what is causing that, and that's
Right.
true. A lot of people don't know what that causes. I've heard people say, well, I walk under a street light and it goes off. Well, that could be a coincidence, and I write it down to myself as maybe a coincidence. I had a light bulb, and actually in the bedroom, that goes super bright. It goes about 5 times its brightness, and it doesn't blow. And I'm sitting there with my hand over my face thinking it's going to blow, because I don't know what happens. What happens there? Is it just the reverse, Jesse, that they can kind of make something bright?
Yeah, well, what we've been looking at is that they're using some kind of frequency, and they can make that frequency go high or low. What it does is it actually can overexert the battery in an object, or it can, like you said, with the light, it can make it swell up and have more energy, like an energy rush, and that's what makes the light get real bright like that before it actually gets to the point of blowing, or it could drain the battery completely with frequency. And you actually have to recharge the battery or replace the battery in an object. So it's really interesting.
Okay, we also talked, I guess, off camera and over, over the internet and things about some of the things that I was concerned about. I don't know how far to go into this, but there's been like scalar energy waves, whatever, and and I know that the our top secret scientists have a lot of technology that we don't even know about.
Correct.
We know that these groups have back engineered even the possibility of abducting people and using energy on them to dumb them down or knock them out.
Right.
We know that they can come in and maybe kill those batteries. We know that the technology, I'm saying we know because there's been so many people talk about our secret groups.
That's right.
Alphabet boys knowing this technology, and they have gotten it from the ETs from the last 70 years or whatever. Do you know anything about that, or how much can you talk about that, Jesse?
So one of the three alphabet agencies that I've tried to bring up to people and keep their attention to this group is DARPA. DARPA has been working with nanotechnology, and nanotechnology can't be seen unless it's under a scope. We're talking about nanotechnology that can go and be injected into the bloodstream and can actually heal people, or it can actually deteriorate a person's health. We're talking about technology that, we have drones today that fly all over the skies. DARPA is actually creating killing drones to go and kill these drones. And I mean, they show videos of them on their website. They're really they're hiding it, but it's in plain sight in a sense. And you can go on their website and you can get a lot of this information. And just looking at what they have to date in nanotechnology and the advancement they have in technology, you can only imagine what they're not showing you publicly. And to think that they can, put something in air that can be ingested into the body, that can, heal cancers or different tumors in the body and heal you, and then also do the reverse. I mean, imagine what they're not showing you. I mean, that can be some really scary stuff to think about. I'm actually finishing my book up right now, and part of the ending.
I was going to ask you about that book. You're going to do it through the free, I guess, the Flying Press.
Flying Disc Press, yeah.
And that's
Philip Mantle.
Philip Mantle, great guy.
Yeah.
Give him a plug on that. He's a great guy.
Yes, very good guy.
He's really working in this field.
Yes, absolutely. So what the big part of this book is, I came across these documents a couple of years, it's probably been about 4 years, at an auction. And I've always talked about, the government, Philip J. Corso supposedly said that he gave these different types of technology to big companies, and they reproduced them, like computer chips, Kevlar, lasers, all that kind of stuff. So we know that it's possibly happened. If we don't want to say, some people won't say it's not true, but I believe that stuff has been reverse engineered and has been used, and that's how we got as far as we did in the technology boom. But these documents really, they're audio visual productions from 1984, but come from the 1970s. So that just shows you how far this stuff goes back. And some of the topics that they talk about are I mean, completely describe UFO technology. We're talking about propulsion systems. Just to name some of these things, I mean, I have the documents right here. They just blow my mind because they date that far back, and to have things that date that far back, you can only imagine how advanced they are today. So just to name some of these things, I mean, under physical science, it talks about chemistry, electricity and magnetism, masers and lasers, optics, particle physics and accelerators, quantum theory, solid mechanics, solid state physics, thermodynamics, which is based off of free energy. We're talking about wave propagation, which is radio frequency waves, including microwave optics. And then it goes on to talk about propulsion and fuels. And it goes into electronic propulsion. It goes into the performance and storage of these fuels, and how we can use them to make these propulsion systems work. And then it gets into jet, gas, and steam turbine engines. It gets into nuclear propulsion and propagating, which is engines and various configurations of all different types of propulsion systems. And then it gets into rocket motors and rocket propellants. I mean, these are documents from 1984. And what these documents show is that these were actually visual trainings that the military was doing at the time. And these are the not clear and the cleared of what was able to be released to the public. And it goes down the line in depth. I mean, I have 1,000 of these documents, and these are in the book, and it describes what is right under our nose the whole time. And to just imagine that they've had it at that time, I mean, it all makes sense with the way that UFO history is lined up. Roswell, we
Right.
get the crash, the debris, and we start using it from them. Philip J. Corso releases these different things. The organizations, they've reproduced them, they send them out. And then about 1970s, they already have training paperwork from the Navy and Marine Corps. You know what I mean? And it just adds up in the time frame. So imagine where we are today, like you talked about with these three-letter agencies. I mean, it can be incredible. So it just goes to show you that the military is controlling the narrative while they're using this technology behind the scenes.
Right.
So
Have
it's
you
really
ever?
interesting.
I know in Hollywood, and I was told this on the set of Star Wars, Star Trek. Uh, there's always a government agency that's there overseeing and watching this, and they'll
Correct.
say, "No, you can't have that scene. You got to cut this scene. That scene has an asshole
Yep.
involved. We don't want them involved." And does MUFON ever get censored by these groups when you talk about certain things, Jesse?
To my knowledge, we have not been censored. To my knowledge of the work that I do here in PA with the people that I work with, my state directors and people like that, I've never had that, and I've never heard of it happening. Doesn't mean that it doesn't. There's a board of directors. I mean, it could happen, but we know they control the news very well. Like you said, they say the yes and the no, what can get released to the public that way. So I mean, I guess if they really wanted to, they could, but definitely not in the public view, at
Right.
least in my
Yeah,
opinion.
I've heard that there's been some people that were TIs or targeted individuals. I guess you've heard of that. And
Yes,
there's a lot of influencers. I'm not going to say who, what, where, or how, because things have happened crazy with some of my guests and things of that nature, but I won't get into that. But you mentioned frequencies a while ago, and frequencies, that is the magic of our whole life and our universe.
correct.
Is that right, Jesse?
That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
Very, very big part of it, because not only do we have man-made frequencies, but we have natural particles that come in from outer space. And these are natural frequencies that can, change the way the energy feels in the air, or it can the sun basically sends energy particles into Earth, into our atmosphere. So they're everywhere. I mean, it's all over. You can't really get away with it. And we've learned to harvest these things and to use them in our technology we have today. So yes, it's based on everything. It's very important. It's one of the big ones for sure.
Yeah, I'm wondering why these secret agencies, these three-letter alphabet of people, why they would want to back engineer abduction type situations or monitor, I guess, people. I don't know why they would want to do it, because a lot of times they can get our DNA through hospitals or through doctors or whatever, through some kind of other way. Uh, and it's just like the cattle mutilations. I have a theory on that, in which this might blow your mind, Jesse, but I think it could be the ETs taking cattle and livestock DNA and taking it to other planets where there's humans like us. We're not the only humans in this universe. There's a lot more humans just like us on other planets. These ETs might be taking DNA from these cattle as a feed source, taking it back, growing it in a test tube, and growing animals for the humans to consume. Now, that's one of my crazy thoughts. I don't know what is the latest, on the MUFON side of this thing about, I guess, cattle mutilations, Jesse.
We haven't really done too much cattle stuff lately. I haven't really heard, and I always look for it too, because that's Linda Moulton Howe was very big with
Right.
that when she did it. She was one of the very
Yeah.
few that did it. Jenny Randalls did some information, the UK author and researcher. But myself, I mean, we look at, like you said, cattle mutilations, we look at abductions, we look at many times UFOs becoming unidentified submersible objects, taking water out of the oceans and lakes. And I do believe there's other life out there, absolutely 100%. Might there be a shortage on that planet where we have an abundance of it here and they're taking it and they're resupplying there? Is it a food source, like you said? Now, you said with the governments, I think they might be doing this to keep track of possible hereditary things, and a family lineage of family members that a hospital might not have. So the military might want to experiment with things like that, and I'm sure they have. We know MK Ultra, they experience with real
Right.
people. So the possibilities are endless in a sense, and I definitely believe there's other life out there that may need what we have here.
Mhm.
You know.
I had Dr. Shipe on here a week or so ago, and he's talking about these little, they call little dragons. They're only about an inch and a half long, and they look like brass or gold looking, and they're like an egg shape, oval shape, and they fly extremely fast, 1,200 miles an hour, and they come off the ground and they go up and they check out an aircraft. Any aircraft that passes over it goes by them, and it can gather information that quick.
Hmm.
These are really high tech little ET things. And he actually showed pictures of white little streams coming out of them. He said these things run on electricity, and that's plasma that's coming out. That is a stream of plasma that propels. They use propulsion methods of electrical plasma for their drives. And he said a lot of UFOs, regular size UFOs, use the same thing. And he made a comment in which I found was true also. And I've seen 6 up close UFOs, and I've seen others at a distance, but I can't count them because I didn't really see them that close. But the lights, when people say there's lights on these UFOs, those aren't particularly lights. Those are propulsion systems that are fired up that could be giving off a glow of
Absolutely.
electrical plasma. Now, have you guys considered that as a source of propulsion for these UFOs, Jesse?
Absolutely. It's definitely a theory for sure. Absolutely. Plasma, I mean, we know there's major energy with plasma. And we know astrophysicists are doing testing with different plasma types, and they're trying to use it for different technologies. So I think it's one of the big parts of energy and frequency here. Yes.
Yeah, when I if you get the chance to watch his videos from the show, take a look at those little things that he's talking about. And he's been studying these things for 30 years, and he has a lot of video of it. And
Okay.
also the military is involved in looking for it. He's on a beach somewhere. I'm not going to say exactly where, but he's on a beach in California, nice area, and the cops and also the military patrol that area all the time because of these dragons that take off and inspect any aircraft that's about 150 feet off the ground. So he's got some really dramatic, video of that, and he shows that these things do run on plasma and they actually cross over power lines and to pick up a real charge real quick. And that's why sometimes people will have fluctuation of power because these craft go over, transformers or whatever, and they pick up
Right.
a little power, and then that gives it a little glitch to the power grid.
Yep.
So they do that quite a bit. So
It's just like a solar panel, right?
yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, so that kind of opened my eyes to another theory of propulsion, and also they're not lights. I seen my first few UFOs I saw. There was a little red light on. I don't know why. I seen 2 of them with little blinking red lights, but they're white lights. Now I know that those really aren't lights because why would a UFO need headlights?
Right.
so, so they're propulsion systems that are fired up, and they're using it for anti-gravity, I guess, devices, and also for their propulsion to stay up. And I saw the one big, huge triangle one time back in 2011. So did my mom. My 2 other brothers saw this thing come over the neighborhood. It was huge, about 9 houses wide. The front light wasn't lit up. It had 2 big globes in the front of it. They're 15 feet long, about 5-6 feet wide. I don't know why they were kind of glass looking globes. I know they're not glass. They had to be something else, but they weren't fired up. Only the 2 back areas were fired up with bright lights. And because it's only going 30 miles an hour and it was only about 35 feet off the ground. and that's
Okay.
why they had a low, they was powered up low, so they didn't have to go high, but they did when they took off. But no, the propulsion now, I'm starting to see that that's probably the plasma thing that's driving them. It's probably not. I know that what's his name, Bob Lazar, he was talking about propulsion. I guess
Yeah.
you studied Bob Lazar. He's been in the news lately. Could you tell us, Jesse, anything new that you've heard from him?
I mean, he's working very closely with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. He has from day one. I think and I've talked with Jim Goodall. I've had Jim on my show, and he's very good friends with Bob Lazar. He believes everything that Bob said was 100% true. And many of the things that Bob has said has come true. I mean, look at element 115, for example. That's one of the biggest examples from Bob.
Right.
He talked about this energy source that we have that's not on the periodic table. And years later, it's now there. You know what I mean? He talked about these sports models. He's made hand drawings of these objects that look just like what we see when people have normal sightings of disc-shaped objects. It's just very interesting, and I do believe Bob to an extent. You know what I mean? They
Yeah, I do.
tried to discredit him, but they tried to erase him from his work history. Luckily, George Knapp was able to find in the phone book where he used to work. His name was still left in the phone book. It wouldn't be in there if he didn't really work there. So I believe his story, and I think that like a government can control the news and give the yay or nay to what goes out. They can erase someone's background just like that if they really wanted to as well. And I think that's part of what happened.
Yeah, and they can snuff you out if they want to.
Absolutely.
Bob Lazar said that they tried a couple of times with him. I guess he had a car
Well,
accident.
that's why he came forward, because he was scared for his life.
Yeah.
He was worried that that was going to happen. He would be in the next car accident. And he did have that issue with the vehicle at one time. And he was worried that they were going to come and he was not going to be living too much longer. And that's when he got hold of George Knapp. So very
With,
interesting.
with disclosure dripping out little by little, Jesse, do you believe now that the three-letter agencies are the government or the military, MIC, do you think they're concerned about what we're saying about UFOs now? Are we being watched and monitored and told to shut up at certain times? Do you get that anywhere from any of your people that you've interviewed?
100%. And I don't just get this from people. I get it from other podcasters, other show hosts on YouTube and on different platforms. We see on TikTok, on Facebook, on YouTube, the biggest one. A lot of censorship.
Right.
We're finding that UFO, anything that has to do with the paranormal, cryptozoology, Bigfoot, or ufology, all gets censored. Or when you go on YouTube, everything usually that's popular will pop up. If it happens to be a UFO show that's really popular, it doesn't come up on that feed.
Right.
And that's what they're doing to try to not show as much information that has to do with the field. And we see that happen with many people, and they actually get another thing that YouTube does is they give strikes out. And they'll try to strike you for anything. You get 3 strikes, you're done. You lose your show.
Right.
Something that you've worked so hard for, you've built, and they very easily give these strikes out, and it's a shame. You know what I mean? So I see it a lot,
You've heard it
especially
from,
being a podcaster myself.
yeah, you've heard it from me too, I guess.
Yes,
Yeah, I talked about that, but yeah, you also get throttled on the internet. Uh,
absolutely.
they'll cut your numbers down. They'll try to, I guess, make you feel like, okay, you're climbing up a large hill.
That's right.
You're not, they're not showing you maybe half of the views or the hits that you're really getting, because there's 2 things I see of that. They want you to pay for boosting the show. Number one,
Correct.
that's one thing. That's why they throttle you. The second reason is they don't like the topic that you're talking about,
Right.
and they're trying to discourage you. And I've been discouraged a couple of times and almost thought, well, I should just stop. But I've had people say, no, don't stop, Dave.
That's right.
Keep going, keep talking, and enlightening people. I'm not giving away top secret ideas. I'm
Right.
just suggesting theories and talking points with my guests and also with myself. Now, getting into disclosure, let's creep into that a little bit. Edgar Mitchell and these other astronauts have been in the news lately. There's been a couple of them who said that the moon landing was false, and then there's a couple of them who said it was true. What have you heard about these astronauts, Jesse?
I've heard a lot. I've done a lot of research on the astronauts. It's actually a part of my book. All the astronaut missions that went up there and had UFO sightings. And Edgar Mitchell, what were all their names? I can't remember all the names right now, just off the top of my head. But you see that I believe that the moon landings were real. I believe that it really did happen. And you see I don't know how to, it's like the love, the dedication that went into flying these missions from the astronauts when they're put in front of the media and reporters that tried to tell them that they didn't make that mission. And I've seen them live on camera. I've seen confrontations with astronauts and media personnel. The media comes at them and says, "You never landed on the moon. Why don't you just tell us it was a big old lie?" And you see it come over them. You see that all the hard work that they put in to do these missions, and that's how they defend themselves. And so I do believe that they happened. I know there's a lot of people that say that they were fake. They were, they never happened. But we have all these transmissions from the ham radio operators that were able to listen to the channels that were between Houston and the astronauts that were cut off from the public. Because of these ham radios, they were able to intercept these transmissions and they were able to hear what actually went on between the two. And them seeing the different crafts that were up on the ridge that were watching the astronauts as they landed on the moon. These objects that were flying by their craft as they were, the astronaut that was up still in the flying around the moon while the two were landed, he had objects flying by his craft and he was telling Houston about this. They actually thought multiple times they were going to have near collisions with objects while they were there and lose their life. So I believe that this happened. I think it's a theory that people have, and everybody's allowed to have their own theories. But in my opinion, with the research that I've done and what I've seen, and really taking a look at the astronauts themselves, I believe 100% that they've had these moon landings. In my opinion.
And who is this director who put together the film for the moon landings? They said they did it in a Hollywood studio or whatever. That was, that's kind of the conspiracy
Right.
naysayers. The only thing I know, Jesse, and this is not a theory since I believe in UFOs and ETs, seen them, but they were involved with UFOs and ETs on the moon, and they were
Absolutely.
them. Now that's what I do believe. Some of their communications was cut off because they were telling Mission Central, they were telling them we have a bogey or
Yes.
we have a UFO in sight, and they said, well, get off of the channel and go on to the.
That's right.
That's what they're talking about. Is that right, Jesse?
Yes, that's exactly what I was talking about with the transmission and the ham radios.
Right.
Because there was multiple transmissions where the astronauts would not turn off their radio for the public channel, and they continued to talk about some of this stuff. And Houston actually had to cut the channel from the public view, the video and the audio recordings. I mean, look at the astronauts that just lost their lives trying to shoot up to the moon. Right. I mean, we had that major disaster of the rocket ship exploding. I mean, people don't lose lives if it's being faked, Yeah. So in my opinion, I believe everything that went on, and I believe that they had contact while they were up there. Right. They know exactly what they were looking for, and they knew that there was things there that weren't supposed to be there that were watching them, So
yeah, well, this disinformation, misinformation, it started even way back then. When Kennedy got shot, that's when the conspiracy theories were really hitting the national audience, and
big time.
And the news and everything had their own thoughts and theories. Well, actually, the Kennedy thing is actually coming out more and more. Robert Kennedy Jr. actually said that there was an alphabet that played a part of that killing, and that when Lee Harvey Oswald, I have to think, when I look at him walking through the hallway, he says, "I'm a patsy." He had help. This guy, this guy wasn't, wasn't of the caliber to do what he was doing. He did what he did do. He missed, He did.
And they had the new documentary that's coming out about it too.
Yeah.
And they're saying there was 3 shots that day, not one. Yeah. There was 3 shots from 3 different angles. So they were making sure that one of those bullets hit him, and I believe 100% that the government was in on that. You know what I mean? That's my personal belief. There's no way it was set up the way it was so perfectly, and then to have the drop on Lee Harvey Oswald like that, know.
If you watch that documentary, it played last week, 2 hours. There was a guy who come out. He was a medical examiner, and he come out after they pronounced Kennedy dead, and he said that yes, he was shot here. He pointed it right there to the forehead, and that was from the front. That was from the grassy knoll. And
Right.
he pointed, and I don't know if anybody saw that, but he said, yes, he was shot here and in the throat. And he said Governor Connolly, he was shot in the arm and it went through his leg or something. That was the magic bullet. But then when he made that motion, he said, yes, he was shot right here. I thought, didn't anybody see that? He was admitting that he was shot from the front, not from Lee Harvey
Not
Oswald.
from the back.
Reason why I'm talking about this is because of the conspiracy and the disinformation that's going on today with UFOs.
Big
And
time.
we got people that's playing both sides of the coin. You
Oh
probably
yeah.
you probably know some of them.
We call them sock puppet accounts.
Yeah.
We have people that are real people, like for example me, and then I would go and make another 2 or 3 accounts acting as other people spreading disinformation. And that's what they do.
Yeah. What about these people that are ufologists that are probably working on both sides of the coin, and they work for the alphabet people and get it, they're inside the ufology people, and then they give the latest in news. It's news that they don't want us to know is what bothers the government. They don't want us to know certain things, and they keep track of what we do know. Well,
Right.
I guess I haven't known enough for them to knock on my door, but I don't want to see that either.
No.
So what do you know about these people, Jesse, that plays both sides of the coin?
I mean, I think that they've always been for the government if they're going to play both sides of the coin. And we've seen certain people that have come out in the news, and there's theories. I'm not saying if it is or if it isn't. But for example, there was a big controversy with Lou Elizondo. He came out, he was the distinguished guy that was helping the field of ufology. And then people said that he had sock puppet accounts and he was spreading disinformation. And he really wasn't in it for the good and right reasons that he said. Multiple times he said, I'm not a UFO guy, I'm a counterintelligence guy. And after saying that he was a UFO guy, you know what I mean? So we've seen it with big names that come out in the field of ufology. So we know that it goes on all the time, and we've seen, for example, big ufologists back in the day, Bill Moore, and he had what's his name, the one gentleman that I was in the documentary with, I forget his name, but he was a counter intel guy, and he was feeding him information with good stuff and mixing the disinformation in. So we know that the government has these people working for them to spread this information, but to gain trust from the public before they start doing that. You know what I mean? So they'll come and they'll be good friends with you, Dave, and me, and then we'll get in real good. We'll do some good work together, and then they'll throw little things in it, and then it starts
Right.
from there.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think ufologists, we are our own worst enemies. And a lot of times like I was talking to your pre-show, that a lot of people have, cerebral dreams and the regress dreams, and we can't discount those. We can't say that they didn't have an experience. Although most 50 or 60% of mine were all physical experiences, and then the other 30% or so were probably regress dreams and lucid dreams. But those kind of count in a way if they can tie to something stronger. But we shouldn't be knocking anybody. And I've
No.
heard some talking heads knocking people by saying, okay, we're only going to believe these airline pilots, military pilots, and police, because they're professional observers. Well, I was in the military, but I was never trained to look at UFOs. So, yeah, so that's the thing. I wasn't trained for that, and I don't think hardly anybody is.
All right.
When they see something like that, they just tell you what they see. Is that right, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. I believe that, and it's a shame because everybody is deserving of their own experience. They've had it. Something has happened that they're dealing with, and I don't believe that anybody, whether who you are, whether you have the biggest background in the world, or if you're just a guy off the street, you don't have the right to tell somebody that something didn't happen to that individual when they're being brave enough to come forward and even tell their story in the first place. We know that takes a lot of guts to be able to come out on a podcast or a show and say, hey, this happened to me, and then let alone have people say, oh no, that didn't happen to you. You can't tell somebody that. I think it's wrong to do so. And even with myself working as MUFON in the ERT, I don't take an ERT report, an experiencer report, just to tell them if it happened or if it didn't happen. I'm there to support that individual, and that's how it should be.
Now, that's a great organization at ERT. That's going to help the experiencers greatly. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing, Jesse. And Earl Gray also has been on my show. He's the, MUFON director of Southern
Yes.
California. He's been involved in some conventions and things of that nature. He's been pretty busy. And we talked about the same thing. And I mentioned you to him, and he knows you. And I appreciate all the work that you guys do. And I just want to get the word out there. And I want people to be able to talk about their experiences. And I've had some people that want to come on my show, and then they get scared, and they get too scared to come on the show because their family or their loved ones or whatever have told them, don't do this because you're
Right.
fool out of yourself. Well, you have to make that decision to do that, to come forward if you really want to. I mean, that's what's inside of you. I know I come forward some time ago, and I've been dribbling it out ever since. But it's something that now that at my age, I don't care, what people think in a way. Once you get older, you don't care. But when you're younger,
Absolutely.
you're afraid your peers are going to say, "Oh, you're crazy, you this and that." So, in your ERT, some of the experiences you've had working with that, Jesse, could you tell us a little bit about that and how to make people feel more welcome to come out and tell their stories?
Yeah, I mean, the first part of getting help, and I tell people, the experiencers that report to the ERT, I let them know the first step is coming and getting help. With your experience, you take that first step, you've done the biggest part. Once you do that, it's just up to you to kind of take the information and get educated on the subject and kind of just follow the lines down, and then you wind up going through this process, and it's like a healing in a sense. And you work with someone like myself, and you get educated, and you go to groups, you learn that you're not alone in all this. And you get this feeling of you want to help somebody else, and it kind of returns the favor in a sense. And many people that report to the ERT wind up becoming field investigators or MUFON ERT members and returning that favor that they were helped, and now they can help other people with their story. It's really neat because the majority of the time when you're telling your story, you are helping another person already. You're letting them know that somebody that's listening might have the same experience. And because you're telling it, they now know that they're not alone. And that makes them feel a lot more less alone, in a sense. So I think the whole thing is just, it's a great opportunity. And I think you're going to be the safest you can be with somebody that works in MUFON ERT. We're very passionate about it, and the majority of us are experiencers ourselves. So we're dedicated to helping you through the process and making it the best possible outcome that it can be.
That sounds great. Now you have your own show on X, I guess Unix, where they're
Yeah,
hard
the UNX network. Yep.
network, and you have had guests on. I I s- I ask people if they have their experiences they've never told them before. They're more than welcome to come on my show and talk about their experiences. I've had a couple do that, and afterwards they just got scared what was going to happen after they released the information. Now you have a show. Have you interviewed people like that? Who's been one of your most surprising and really informational guests that you've had, Jesse?
So I've had so with the experiencer thing, I have an experiencer month on my show. So I'll bring experiencers on to share. So it does help other people like that. I've had some really great guests. Don Schmidt has been amazing. Tom Carey, those two that work on Roswell together. Very, very educational. Two gentlemen that really are dedicated to what they do and have been since day one. They were both great. I've had Don on twice. Very good guy. Stephen Bassett's doing great work at the Capitol, working with politicians and doing all that. He's one of the very few that are had that background to be able to do that. He was very interesting talking to. Earl Gray has been on. Earl Gray has always been a mentor to me. He's writing the foreword for my book. I've always looked up to him and the training that he does, and then he sets a standard, and it's a great standard in the field. He's come on and told his story. I mean, there's 100 and I think 8 episodes now. So it's going great, and there's tons of people on there that tell their story, that come on there and really try to help other people through the work they're doing, and I think it's amazing.
That's great. I know that's what I wanted to keep going. And like I told you earlier, I thought kind of climbing uphill here, and it's getting tough sometimes, to get the word out. because of what we just talked about earlier, the throttle,
Right.
the numbers, and the platforms and the restrictions we have. Uh, Now, getting into disclosure, I heard a story that they're supposed to have a meeting in Florida, and this was the I guess the congressional hearing group of people. They're supposed to meet at an Air Force base in Florida, and the Pentagon called it off. They said, "No, we don't."
Yes.
Why did they do that? Do you know why, Jesse?
I don't know. I've been trying to look into that. There's theories all over Twitter. Of course, there's people saying all kinds of stuff. They tried to say that there wasn't enough funding, that there wasn't enough money to be able to have that set meeting, which I don't understand because there was supposed to be money that was supposed to be put aside
Right.
in the bill when it was written.
Mhm.
It was supposed to have more than enough money because I remember when they had the hearings and it was live on TV, the senators and politicians that were talking about it made sure they asked that question. They asked the DOD and all the other people and individuals. They said, "This will be enough funding, correct?" And they said, "Yes, this will have plenty of extra money to be able to do anything we need to do when it comes to the field of UAP and UFO." So there's no reason that there should have been a lack of funding to have a meeting that's important, that's now bringing whistleblowers to the forefront, to do these closed hearings.
Right.
I don't get it.
Yeah, there's some really popular shows that are like Skinwalker Ranch. That I watch that show quite a bit. They really have a lot of electronic, support.
Yes.
They developed facts and pictures, and they're really doing a great job. And they've actually had a congressman there. His name was Bell, I think, something like that. He was there on one of the shows. So they have an interest. Congress has an
Oh
interest,
yeah.
and like you said, the money was there. So why would they, like Senator Rubio too is one of the pushing senators on this whole disclosure thing. I don't think. Here's some other theories I think people come up with. They say that ETs aren't ready for a disclosure. They're working with the government. They've been working with the government for 60 years or whatever, and the ETs aren't ready to disclose because they don't think most people are ready for it. How do you feel about that, Jesse?
I believe that most people are ready for it. There's been two major polls that were taken. One with I forget exactly when, but it was like the 70s, 80s, or 90s. How many people believe that there was life outside the planet, and if it was coming and visiting Earth?
Right.
Back in the day, it was like 50 something percent, and I think recently they did another poll on the same thing, asking everybody in America, and it was like 60, 70% people believe. And then there was like that small little 30% that said they were unsure. So I believe people are ready. I believe there's not just one ET race. I believe there's many, just like there's different races of people. Some might be ready, some might not be ready at all. But people are having experiences, people are having sightings, they're disclosing themselves to us. They
Mhm.
are already doing that. They just and people say, "Oh well, I want them to land on the White House lawn. That'll be the day that I believe them." Well, they've already flown over the White House. There's already been a major sighting of multiple
Right.
objects on radar. We have the data. We have the Phoenix lights. We have the Battle of LA. I mean, what more do you need? They have been disclosing themselves. Whether it's come out and land somewhere and make a big thing in front of the news, they don't have to do that. I don't think.
Right.
I believe they're here already. They've been doing this. This is why we have people that have sightings. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah. A lot of people, Jesse, uh, I'm speaking to Jesse Peak, MUFON investigator, and involved in several different groups, ERT and everything. And that's who I'm speaking to now. I just want to remind people that Jesse's got a lot of experience, a lot of actually classroom work and field work in what he's talking about. I want to ask you again, not again, but about this Dr. David Jacobs. He said they're walking amongst us. He wrote this book so many years ago, and I have actually met some strange people, and I think they know more than what they say. Uh, what do you feel about that, Jesse and MUFON? Do you get experiencers talking about strange people they meet that could be? They say there's humanoid ETs
Right.
amongst us, working with us, actually causing trouble in our world. How do you feel about that, Jesse?
I think it's definitely a possibility. We know the reptilian race is one of the more negative ones that we see. And they supposedly say they can take on the human form and they can cause mayhem and do things like that. So I do believe that happens and they could be behind that. It's definitely a possibility. Like I said, we have many different races, and being in the MUFON ERT, I've had people that have reported their experiences that say they're hybrids,
Mhm.
half human, half ET, and we know that supposedly back through history that the human race is kind of built from ET in a sense. You know what I mean? They put us here, they've germinated us, we become kind of the shape of what they wanted us to be. And I do believe that people are hybrids. Some people are full, and it's definitely a possibility. I've had many report to me. I have one individual talking to me right now that wants to get in touch with a MUFON chat there, and they believe they're a full-fledged ET, and they're ready to start speaking to these individuals and the people, and they want to get their information out. So it's a possibility. It has to be.
Yeah.
Um, the overall phenomenon calls it to be a possibility. You know what I mean? So I do believe it.
I believe that the ETs also can turn you off and on with their frequencies. They
Oh
can
yeah,
switch you off and on. Also, a lot of these people that might be star seeds, they might have a lot of knowledge of ETs and everything, but they're not the humanoid ETs that I'm talking about. These are real ETs that they work amongst us and they just do their task and their jobs, and they do it because they want to know more about where we're at and what we're doing, like in government. They're in usually top positions like in government. A couple of incidents that happened on TV and some of these videos that are on, I know you saw them. There was this black lady. She's a Congress lady, and she was at a hearing, and there was a younger person, white person with dark hair, and she was mumbling every word this Congress lady was saying, like she was interjecting it in her thoughts,
right.
and she was muttering. And the camera says, "Watch this, watch her and her movements." And she was looking at the Congress lady, and her mouth was moving. And then she saw the camera on her, and then she kind of turned away, and then she didn't do it no more. She
Hmm.
backed off because I guess she was found out. There was another one too, Mitch McConnell, the congressional Senate,
Yeah.
but there was a lady, he was going to speak out in the hallway of the House of Congress, and there's other senators around him, and there was this lady in her 50s, and they knew her. They looked at her and smiled at her. She went through a couple of guys, and then she did a hand gesture, like, like this, like she clicked something off and on, and
Hmm.
she clicked Mitch McConnell off, and then he just stood there. He didn't say nothing. That's when he went quiet.
Right. I
Uh,
remember there's two of those
two
occasions.
times, yeah. Uh, could that be possible, Jesse, that they're in our government?
I mean, we look at nano, like I said earlier, nanotechnology. I mean,
Uh,
they can put anything in your body and make your body do or react any which way. So if we have that, then they have it. So
oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's, I mean,
It's scary to think about that.
it is very scary to
Yeah.
think about.
All right, let's. The meat of the thing is, I want to ask you, what is your impression of disclosure, where we are at, and where we're going to end up, and how long is it going to take, Jesse, for us to closure?
I don't know how long it's going to take. I do believe that we're in the process of disclosure. It already started happening when we had the hearings.
Mhm.
That mean it was the first time in history we ever had a hearing on UFOs. So if that's the start of anything, it's definitely the start of disclosure. I
Right.
think the whistleblower thing is going to be huge, but we can't have things like funding being an issue when we're going to have these hearings with behind closed doors with the whistleblowers from three-letter agencies and military personnel. It's not going to work if that happens. I mean, we can never get anything done. Funding is the rule of everything in the United States. We can't even have a country unless we pass certain bills bi-monthly in Congress right now to keep the state going. So it's got to be the same way for disclosure. So I think that the hand behind the wheel is going to try to slow it down as much as possible. Maybe let little things happen here and there. I'm hoping that we make some progress within the next year. That would be great. I would love to see more from Avi Loeb and his project that he came out with years ago now, a couple of years back, that he stated he had these top of the line cameras that would be able to catch UFOs in the act and be very detailed. So far, we really haven't seen nothing from that I'm aware of. So I would like to see more from the people that are saying that they're going to do things, and that would be nice. We need more people to start getting involved publicly in this field, because the more we have that, the more people are going to get educated on the subject. The more people that get educated on the subject, get involved in the field, and that gives more credibility to the field of ufology.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm hoping that it goes and we get something done.
I feel vindicated to a certain extent, because
Right,
my experiences and now they're real. A lot of people believe that they're flying around us and they're up in the air, but they don't believe they're here with us. They don't think there's ETs here with us. That's another big thought that they've got to overcome. That's another
right,
big speed bump that they got to figure. Okay, they're here. They're already here
right.
on our planet. They've been here for thousands of years. So that's the thing about disclosure. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about, is there anything new that you're involved with or MUFON's involved with that you might be able to talk about, Jesse?
MUFON, not really. I mean, we've just released a couple new things. We're doing a lot of technology updates. We just created a whole new case management system for our cases, so we can take more cases and we can collect more data to give more information out to the public. We've also created the MUFON Observer network, which is like a social media platform for people involved with MUFON. You can go on there and create a profile and connect with people in your state, in your city, field investigators, so you can get together with them, share information that way. They've also created a new app on your phone when they release the app. When they released the new Observer Network, which is a social media platform, they also released a new app for your phone. It's a MUFON app, and it gives you real-time reported UFO sightings on a map. You can report your sightings from there. There's information that gets on there, so it's like its own little platform now, which is really cool. And it's also Project Aquarius, which is a part of that app, is a bunch of different organizations sharing data in one place. It's now the largest shareable database in the world of ufology, which is going to be on there to share that information with the public. So those are the new things that happened this year. So I'm excited to see what happens for next year. I
What
think
about
as technology changes, we have to change with it. So it's a good step.
the website the government has that they say that you can go on there and tell your observations or your sightings to them, and they're collecting data now from people on the website. I forget the website, but they said it's for disclosure to help in the disclosure project.
Right.
Yes, Mr. Mellon and Alessandro and a couple other guys are involved in this, and it's supposed to be an open site where you just go in and tell your stories. I haven't went there yet to check it out, but I guess I need to find out where that website's at. Now, is there something going on with you now in the future? I know you have a book in the making, you have a show, and you work with MUFON. You're doing a lot. Could you tell us or anything new about what you're going to be doing, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, it's coming to the end of the year, so everything's kind of slowing down, but there's a lot of stuff in the works. We're looking to expand our team at Project BATTECH. We have a couple trainees in the process because we made a whole training program up to get people to the point where they can research cases and investigate them. Working with UAP Medical Coalition, I started a new job, so I have to get back involved with that. They're doing a lot of great things over there. The team has grown tremendously at UAP Med. We're moving towards becoming a nonprofit. We have an abundance of interviews done with experiencers, so people can go over there and check those out. We built a forum from the day one since we rolled out the UAP Medical Coalition, where you can go over there and join the forum, and you can get any kind of information about the experiencer phenomenon that you can imagine. You can join on there, you can start conversations. Everything has sources, so any information that's on there, you can get in there, join, collect that data, take it in, educate yourselves, get involved with what UAP Med's doing. We're trying to spread the word as much as possible because our main goal is to educate medical professionals on the overall experiencer phenomenon. Because like I said before, many experiencers get misdiagnosed. They go to their doctors and say, hey, I'm having abductions, and they either get over medicated or they get put to a mental institution, and that doesn't help the overall problem. So what we want to do is we want to get more medical professionals on board so we can educate others, which we do have medical doctors on board now, nurses, therapists, and it's coming along really nice.
Great. Now, where can we find you on the website? We're closing in our last minute on the show. So where can we find you, and where you got any websites, or you got a show that you want to mention?
Yeah, so my podcast is UFO Encounters Worldwide. You can find me at the website, which is ufoencountersworldwide.wordpress.com. Has all of my information. You can email me. Has all the information about the show. You can find the show on all podcast platforms, and it's also played on the Onyx Network every Saturday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm always available to talk. I will get back to you. Give me a little bit. I always respond to everybody. If you're looking for help, I can point you in the right direction. More than happy with that. The project website is Project BATTECH 404.wordpress.com.
Good. And you're with a MUFON in Pennsylvania. I got an hour from Jesse, and that was hard to do. He's pretty busy. So I want to thank you, Jesse, for being on the show. Jesse Peak, MUFON fella, and he's everything involved in MUFON in Pennsylvania. This has been the Dave Emmons Show and Strange Reality. We thank you for joining the show. Thank you. Bye-bye.